AITA for accidentally sending a message about my boss. To my boss? I don't know how I'm supposed to show my face at work tomorrow. I've already played out every possible scenario, and none of them end with me keeping my job. Let me explain how I managed to ruin my life in the span of 2 seconds and one very regrettable message. It started with my boss, Susan. You know the type. Always impeccably dressed, high heels clicking like a metronome of doom, and somehow able to deliver compliments that feel like insults. "Oh, I love how you're not afraid to stand out with that haircut," she once told me. Susan runs the office like it's her personal empire. She sends emails at 3 a.m., expects responses by 7 a.m., and treats everyone's lunch breaks like an inconvenience. She even has this habit of walking into meetings 5 minutes late, coffee in hand, and saying, "Sorry, I was saving us all from caffeine withdrawal." But today, she reached new heights of absurdity. Around lunchtime, Susan sent an all-staff email about an upcoming team-building retreat. It wasn't just any retreat, though. It was a mandatory weekend getaway at some remote cabin where, apparently, we'd be bonding through trust exercises and group reflections. Translation: no Wi-Fi, no escape, and a whole weekend of forced proximity with Susan. The email had "excited to strengthen our team dynamics" in the subject line, and I could practically hear her fake enthusiasm through the screen. I groaned audibly, and my coworker Amanda heard me from the next desk over. "Let me guess," Amanda said, peeking over the cubicle wall. "The Susan special?" I nodded. "She's seriously making us give up a weekend for this? Does she think we all live to bond over trust falls and s'mores?" Amanda laughed. "Oh, come on. It can't be worse than the time she made us wear matching shirts for that Office Olympics thing." I rolled my eyes. "At least that was during work hours. This is an entire weekend of Susan micromanaging our team spirit. Honestly, the only trust exercise I need is trusting her to stop sending me emails after 10 p.m. Amanda laughed harder, and I felt a little better. But then I made the worst mistake of my life. I opened my phone to text Amanda. "Susan's probably going to make us sing Kumbaya while she critiques our campfire roasting skills. Can't wait to hear her constructive feedback on my marshmallows." But I didn't send it to Amanda. I sent it to Susan. The moment I hit send, my soul left my body. I stared at my phone, hoping, praying, that it was some kind of mistake. Maybe I hadn't actually sent it. Maybe the app glitched. But no. There it was, a little checkmark confirming that the message had been delivered. To Susan, my boss. The woman who held my job, and my fragile career, in the palm of her meticulously manicured hand. Panic set in immediately. My heart started racing, my palms were sweaty, and I could feel the blood draining from my face. Amanda noticed my sudden silence and peeked over the cubicle wall again. "You okay?" she asked. I turned to her, wide-eyed. "I think I just texted Susan." Amanda's smile faltered. "Texted Susan? What?" I showed her the message, and her jaw dropped. For a solid 5 seconds, she just stared at me, blinking. Then she burst out laughing, so loudly that a few other coworkers glanced in our direction. "Stop laughing," I hissed, grabbing her arm. "This isn't funny." "Are you kidding me? It's hilarious," she said between fits of giggles. "You basically roasted her in her own campfire. Oh my God, what are you going to do?" "I don't know," I whispered back, panicking. "What do I do? Can I unsend it? Is that a thing?" "Nope, it's out there now," Amanda said, clearly enjoying this far too much. "You could always quit and move to a new city. Start fresh, change your name, witness protection style." I glared at her. Not helpful. For the next 5 minutes, I stared at my phone, waiting for the inevitable reply. Every time it buzzed, I jumped, only to find it was some irrelevant notification. Susan hadn't responded yet, which somehow made it even worse. The silence was suffocating. I started imagining all the ways this could go wrong. Susan could call me into her office, her icy glare slicing through me as she recited my message word for word. Or worse, she could forward it to HR, labeling me as insubordinate and unprofessional. I'd be fired before the end of the day, left to explain to my family why I was now jobless, because of a snarky text about marshmallows. I debated sending a follow-up message to apologize, but what could I even say? "Sorry, that was meant for someone else?" That felt like admitting guilt. Maybe I could play it off as a joke? No, that was too risky. Amanda, clearly still amused, leaned over again. "Honestly, I'd just pretend it never happened. Maybe she won't even read it." "Have you met Susan? She probably reads her texts before they even arrive," I snapped. The afternoon dragged on painfully slowly. Every time Susan walked past my desk, I froze, waiting for her to say something. But she didn't. She barely glanced in my direction, which only made me more paranoid. Was she ignoring me on purpose? Was she planning her revenge? By the end of the day, I was a complete wreck. Susan still hadn't replied, but the suspense was killing me. I couldn't focus on anything else. As I packed up my things to leave, Amanda gave me a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. "Good luck," she said, stifling another laugh. "Thanks," I muttered, dreading what the next day would bring. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined different ways Susan could respond. Would she call me out in the next team meeting, send a scathing reply, fire me on the spot? By 3 a.m., I was spiraling so hard I started Googling how to apologize to your boss for an accidental text. Spoiler alert, the internet is useless for this kind of thing. By morning, I felt like a zombie. I dragged myself into the office, half expecting to find a pink slip waiting on my desk. Instead, everything looked normal. Too normal. Susan was already in her office, the door slightly ajar, typing away like nothing had happened. I sat at my desk, trying to act casual, but every fiber of my being was screaming. Did she read it? Was she planning something? Or worse, had she shown it to someone else? I opened my email, bracing for a sternly worded memo, but there was nothing. Around 10 a.m., Susan finally stepped out of her office, holding her ever-present coffee cup. My heart jumped into my throat as she walked past me. She didn't stop. She didn't say a word. But then, as she reached the break room, she turned her head slightly and said, without looking back, "Don't burn your marshmallows." And just like that, she disappeared into the break room, leaving me frozen in my chair. Amanda popped her head over the cubicle wall, her eyes wide. "Did she just—" "She read it," I whispered, my stomach doing somersaults. "Okay, but she didn't sound mad," Amanda said, trying to piece it together. "I mean, that was almost playful." "Playful?" I hissed. "She's probably planning my execution as we speak." For the rest of the day, I was a nervous wreck. Every time Susan walked by, I flinched. Every email from her felt like a ticking time bomb. But she never mentioned it again. By the end of the day, I started to wonder if I was overthinking it. Maybe Susan wasn't as upset as I thought. Maybe she even found it funny. Unlikely, but possible. That illusion shattered the next morning. When I arrived at my desk, there was an envelope sitting on my keyboard. No name, no markings, just a plain white envelope. My heart sank as I opened it, half expecting a formal reprimand. Instead, it was a printed flyer for the team-building retreat. At the bottom, in bold letters, someone had scrawled, "Looking forward to your marshmallow feedback." I stared at it, my hands shaking. Was this a joke? A warning? Susan walked by a moment later, her heels clicking against the floor. She didn't say anything, but the tiniest smirk played on her lips as she passed. Amanda nearly fell out of her chair laughing when I showed her. "She's messing with you," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "This is amazing." "Amazing? I'm going to have to spend an entire weekend with her now," I groaned. The retreat is next weekend, and I have no idea what to expect. Is Susan going to make me the official marshmallow roaster? Call me out in front of the whole team? Or worse, make me lead a trust exercise? So, Reddit, AITA for accidentally sending a snarky text about my boss to my boss? Or am I doomed to become the office cautionary tale?